What's going on, guys? We are back with what I think is going to be an awesome video. Constantly getting asked about making more content related to LeeC Parts, to the salvage yard. I think people are just really curious what goes on in an operation like this. If you guys are familiar with the business, you know we do a ton of LS, Coyote, Japanese imports. But one thing we haven't really got into is the exotics market. We've done a couple 911 turbos, a couple GTRs if you consider them an exotic. I don't. I think they're an Ultima with a little power, but that's a story for another day. Fortunately, it looks like the perfect exotic may have came along. Yesterday, I found a 2016 Porsche GT3 RS at our local Copart yard. It looked like a nice car. It ran, it had all the right parts. So we're gonna give it a go at buying this thing and see what the high-end Porsche market is really like.
Yeah, I mean, I kid you not, our top network expert for the largest internet provider, they told them we have to leave in order for us to, you know, here for the butter. Awesome, thank you. Yes. Thank you so much. Of course. We appreciate it.
All right, so you guys obviously just saw, we bought it, paid more than I wanted to for it. I'd have been happy around 80, but we can't let those boys down in Georgia win. So we're gonna send Dalton down to go get the thing. I'll be back in the shop on Saturday, and I am super jacked to see that car. Alrighty, it is Saturday afternoon. We are back at the shop, and I'm about to get my first real look at the GT3. I mean, even looking like this, it's just a beautiful car. A beautiful car. Oh, these seats are absolutely unreal. Being in this industry for so long, it's very rare that I fanboy over something, but I need one of these. But enough of that. I want to see under it. I know you guys want to see under it, so let's check it out. Well, as far as I can tell, it is untouched. Fun little story from my last expensive Porsche. I bought a 911 Turbo, out-of-state car, couldn't inspect it. It was listed as running. It had a hole blown in the crankcase. That's right, it skipped over a curb, blew the crankcase out, and that was what I was left with. In typical Copart fashion, it did run. Of course, we'll get more into this as we tear it down, but this thing got absolutely crushed. But I guess there's only one thing left to do for today. Let's start it. As I'm sure you guys already know about GT3s, it sounds phenomenal. As nice as this car is, none of this matters unless we're able to actually make a few bucks on the thing. All in, we have $88,000 in the car. And when it comes to Corvettes, Mustangs, all the usual stuff we deal with, we have our numbers down to a science. As you can imagine, being that this is our first GT3, I am not exactly sure what kind of margin, if any, we're gonna see out of it. In this business, it's really hard to pick up a new market like this that you're not familiar with at all and be able to nail down your numbers 100% from the jump. While I certainly tried it with this car and had an idea what I could pay for the thing, there's just no getting around the fact that you need to just buy one. Because truly, the only way we're gonna find out if there's money in these cars at this price is to just part it out, list all our stuff, and see where we're at. It's Saturday evening. We're gonna get in here first thing Monday morning and get cracking on this car. I have not personally been excited about one like this in a long time. So before we jump into the rest of the video, take a second, pause, go down in the comments. Let me know if you guys have ever jumped headfirst into a business venture where you really had no clue if it was gonna succeed or not. Because for all intents and purposes, that's what we're doing with this thing. We could get everything listed and I could be 20 grand in the hole. Or we could find out that we've been missing out on a great margin market all along. There's only one way to find out. See you guys Monday morning. All right, I've been excited all weekend. We're back in the shop. It is finally time to get kicking on the Porsche. You're not gonna give it the old mirror bop on this one like the Camaros? No? Okay.
No, I think the mirrors on this thing are worth more than a Camaro total.
Yeah, I think he may be right on that.
You're gonna ruin the video getting that piece of crap in it with this. Come on, man.
It's a not so subtle plug. Can we get an RIP in the comments, because that's the last time this beautiful GT3 RS is ever going to see the light of day. Before we get too far into the video, I want to interrupt for just one brief second. If you guys are enjoying it, please hit that like button. I love to get this video out to as many people as possible, and that really helps. Also, we are hiring. One of our techs is leaving us and moving down to Florida, so we have an opening here at the beginning of March for a tech. So if you've been watching the channel and think this is a place you'd like to work, give me an email at staffing@LeeCParts.com. Shoot over a resume. Again, this is a dismantler position, so tools and basic automotive knowledge are required. Obviously, if you like being on camera, all the better, because as you guys know, you'll be doing plenty of that here.
Good? Good down? All right. It's not safe.
Paging Goon Squad, he said it's not fixable. Do all Porsche techs wear khakis, by the way?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, you have to.
Okay, yeah.
It's a thing.
Yeah.
I feel like that guy did before he hit that tree.
So one question, one
Yeah.
word answer. Is this the best workout you've had in 2022?
Yeah, we're only 2 months in.
There you go.
Yay! Bitch!
Let's get a flex. There we go.
Big Daddy, baby.
I mean, no,
Stop. The seats are phenomenal.
Seats are
Yeah, but a lot of
phenomenal.
people say it's like hard to get out. Like,
It's hard to get out.
Yeah, so boomers.
drivers' cars.
Yeah.
People order them with like the 12-way adjustable.
Dorks.
Yeah, that's what I say. It's a fucking it's a
Absolute
race car.
dorks. If you order this car with worse seats, come on.
The light.
Whew. Which one of you guys is stronger?
I'll drop and do 50 right now.
$100. You do 50 push-ups right now.
Show me the $100. I was hoping you didn't have it in your pocket.
Roughly.
That ain't $100. That's probably 60 or 80.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Damn it.
Bam. Ooh, $100 straight out the pocket. 50
I got a
push-ups.
phone call. Hang on. Oh, yeah, you slide off a little bit. Can we have lunch on this park bench?
Subaru boys.
What?
Subaru boys. I'm surprised Fernando's not a Subaru boy.
I can agree.
We have done some of the older ones, 996 Turbo and some other Porsches, but this is the first 991 we've done, and specifically any of the Porsches with the PDK, and it is just ginormous. Is that what they taught you at the Porsche dealer?
Yep.
Okay.
Professional.
Yes, it actually took a harder hit than we thought. We actually like crunched in the firewall right there. And then you come in here You can see all of this.
Oh yeah, holy crap, man! It transitioned that far.
And then back here, you can't even see it under the car, but it actually separated all those.
Yep, because that side has a big old gap, and then look at how tight that side is. Wow, that is an amazing amount of energy. I think what's crazy about that is that the windshield didn't break. And I guess most of it probably stayed really low, but I would have thought that with stuff shifting around like that, it would have broken the windshield.
All right, a bulk of the mechanical work is done. We just have to get some things broken down, cleaned up, then we can get everything photoed and listed. One day we'll see him crash. And that is a wrap on the chassis for the GT3 RS. Typically on a car like this, we'll take quarter cuts, rear cuts, whatever. We'll put them on a shelf over there and let somebody decide what they want to buy. This car is a little different since it's such a specialty car and it is obviously so expensive. We're just going to leave it complete like this. All the glass in it, the rear quarters on, and let somebody either buy the whole thing or tell us what they need. That way we don't make a cut and it's just not what somebody needs. They were looking for it to be cut a little different, worked a little different. So we're going to take old girl over to our other unit, photo it up, and put it up on one of our racks. That's where it'll sit until somebody decides if they want to save it or cut it up. While Alex clears the way so we can pull this thing back onto the rack, moving our beautiful, broken monster cart out of the way. Now that he's shut off the only Corvette in the world that sounds like an express van with the mufflers hacked off, I'm going to give you guys one more look at the bottom of this car in case you've wondered what a bare 911 chassis looks like. By the way, I think this is awesome right here. These are the ducts for the air coming into the quarter. That is cool. And they channel all the way over. Yeah. And in this car, it's not turbo. So it just cools the exhaust canister, which is right here. And of course, one more good look at this carnage. That's where she's gonna stay. Somebody come save her. So we are done with all the 911 parts. It is time to get the listing. I am going to spend today knocking that out. Be back in here tomorrow morning and I will get with you guys in and see where we stand. All right, guys, we are back in the shop. We got all of that GT3 stuff listed yesterday. The only thing we have left to do is the chassis. I've yet to look at the total dollar amount from this car, but before we do that, I'm gonna try to give you a quick rundown of where it needs to be on a car like this. And a quick, fast, and simple rundown of the two types of cars we deal with in the salvage industry. The first type of car is your everyday volume car. For us, that's the stuff we deal with every day. Camaros, Corvettes, Mustangs, the stuff that we are really dialed in on financially, and we can say without a doubt before even getting the car here, all right, these 20 or 30 parts are gonna make us our money in this car. Because we go through so many of those, we're generally not keeping these obscure, hard to sell parts that you might sell one of per year, two of per year. Think like that oddball piece of carpet or trim in your car that you would really never have an excuse to lose, break, or need to buy. On those cars, that stuff simply gets trashed. So when we get a car like that in, turnaround time on the parts is usually 1 to 3 months. Of course, sometimes things are sitting around longer, but we generally know how long everything's gonna take to sell, how much it's gonna sell for, and where our margins are. The second type of car are what I consider long-term plays. Cars we may only get 1 or 2 of a year, whether it be because of cost, rarity, or just a market that we're not heavily in. Typically, those types of cars take much longer to sell through. When I buy cars like that, I hope to sell the bulk of the desirable parts anywhere from 3 months to 6 months, but you have a significant number of parts laying around for years. Quite literally years. We have parts in our warehouse now that are from those types of cars that are from our old location 4+ years ago. Especially when you're dealing with cars this expensive, you don't want to throw anything away. Because if that one person calls that needs that oddball part, there's not one coming in the shop tomorrow to pull it from. So needless to say, on those types of cars, like this Porsche, margins have to be much juicier. While it won't be the case on an expensive car like this, if we're dealing with a less expensive long-term play car, I'd really like to see at least 100% gross margins on it. I have a feeling this is gonna end up somewhere south of that, probably closer to 30, 40, 50. And that'll probably be tolerable depending on how well this stuff sells through. As I mentioned earlier, I'm a big fan of just jumping in, giving it a shot, and seeing how it does. That's what we did here. Hopefully it pays off. So we're gonna go ahead and list this chassis and see where we end up. All right, that is our last little bit. Let's see where we stand. All right, other than this guy here, which is something we did a long time ago, looks like we got 126 parts out of it. Total dollar figure being $132,270. Now, we did sell a couple parts off this last night, but it was only for about $500. So while that does sound like a healthy margin, ideally I would like to be a little bit higher on this car. Let's break down the numbers a little bit. As you know, we won the car bidding $83,500. However, after all our fees, we did end up paying $88,280. So that leaves us with roughly a gross margin of $44,000, which is actually exactly 50%. So while that does sound like plenty of room, it starts to get dwindled down fast. We're not going to take into account rent, utilities, things that go into keeping this place open and operating every day. What we are going to take into account is direct labor cost on this car, which we'll ballpark it at $1,000. Then, assuming all this stuff sells for asking price, between eBay fees if we sell it on eBay, credit card processing fees if we sell it off of eBay, we're gonna ballpark at 8%. Some platforms might be a little higher, others it's a little lower, but we're gonna say it averages out at 8% because that's a good rough number. So with that, you're taking off roughly 10.5. The next thing we have to take into account is shipping costs. Less than 10% of the things we sell here get picked up locally. This is obviously much harder to ballpark, but between the freight on the bigger items and the ground shipping on the smaller items, not to mention packaging, box cost, all that good stuff, I'm going to roughly estimate at $5,000. Again, it could be a little lower, a little higher, but I think that's a good ballpark number. And while there is a lot more that goes into this, the last thing we're going to focus on is the wild card. And that's something that's incredibly hard to predict. And that is how much of this stuff simply never sells, takes 5 years to sell, or we have to discount to sell. On the cars we deal with on a day-to-day basis, this number is very, very low because we really know what we're doing and know what's worth keeping. And again, while some of this stuff may sell at a discounted rate way down the road, it's really hard to quantify in a financial sense. It's all gonna depend on what kind of timeline you have in your head when you're buying a car like this. We know it's a long-term play, so we're okay with holding on to it. However, a lot of people aren't gonna wanna see returns trickling in 5 years from now on a car they bought. I've thought about this a lot. And the best estimate I can make on this is that if we are very, very lucky, in a year from now, we will only have a quarter of these parts laying around. Typically, when there's a lot of leftover parts like this, they do tend to be some of the less desirable stuff which is therefore some of the cheaper stuff. So while it might be 25% of the parts, it may only be 15% of the actual value of the car. So again, very hard to estimate, but we'll call it 15% of the value of the car. So when you add all of that up, this is what you're left with as far as drawdown on gross margin. As I said before, this doesn't include anything that's not directly related to this car. Things that are going to draw down even further on our total gross margin. But when you subtract just what we had right here on this paper, you are left with this, 101,370. So that leaves us with a theoretical net margin of 12.8 on the car. When you realize how slim the margins are on these cars, you can begin to understand the tightrope that we're walking when we buy stuff like this. Everything had to go right on this car, which it fortunately did. As I'm sure you guys can imagine, this is the salvage industry. Things often do not go right. If we would have bought this car and it would have been blown up or had a bad engine, we'd be 20 grand underwater on it. Needless to say, buying exotic cars, very expensive cars, is certainly not the get-rich-quick scheme that a lot of people seem to think it is. But in the end, only time is gonna tell how we did on this car. I could be off on any of those numbers one way or the other, and that could make this a slightly better deal or kind of a bust. But regardless, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. This is the first time I've gave my thoughts on the salvage industry, which I've been in for 10 plus years now, on camera. So if you guys did enjoy it, let me know. I'll happily make more of these. When we get a special car in, I'll go more into the financials of it, more into what goes into running a business like this on a day-to-day basis. But if you did dig it, make sure you give us a like, a share, a subscription. As always, I would greatly appreciate it. I will see you guys next time. That's where she'll sit until somebody decides she... Jesus, man. There we go. Hey, at least it makes good content at the end, right?
Easy. All right, Boxster people have feelings too.
Rack and let it rest.
Where's the little red light that says action? Sorry.
This is Gucci.
It's Gucci.
This clears the way. Well, actually, Jesus. And if anyone tags Ocean, we're gonna have a problem.
Cut!
I'd like to apologize, guys. I couldn't film myself taking pictures of this. I wanted to show you the process, so I had to bring in the handicap to do it.
Cut!
When's the next Viper video coming out?